Good morning, or whatever time it is where you are. This is a first live stream I've done in like a year, so just looking to make sure everything's working as expected here. Hopefully, hello from Indiana. All right, hi 3D Jeff. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I'd love to hear where you guys are from. If you want to post that in the chat, see who we're talking to and from where. I'm in my kitchen, which is pretty exciting. We live in Utah, for those that don't know, in the U.S. Looks like we've just got a few people on right now. And so there should be a chat either underneath if you're on your phone or on the right if you're on your desktop. Feel free to use that to ask questions. Got Mr. A from Florida. Welcome. Good morning. So we've got Eastern time zone and Indiana. Is that Central, I'm guessing? So awesome. Okay. And there is a delay, unfortunately, on the chat. At least from what I've seen, it seems to take a few minutes. Not a few minutes, about 40 seconds before the chat stuff shows up. So that might cause some issues here. We'll do our best. Oh, Eastern for Indiana. Awesome. So we've got, I put a link kind of in the bottom here, and I'll actually just type that out and put that in the conversation here just so you guys can see that. But the link to actually go to a post that I've set up on the website if you want to put some sort of a, basically upload a picture or ask questions there as well. We can go ahead and help you out with that by, a lot of times you just need to put a picture up. So that's going to be at, let me type that in here, LRN2DIY.com/live-QA. So if you do need, if there's anything that's like you're not sure how to explain it in a chat, then feel free to put that in there. And then also with that, a couple of caveats. You really need to make sure that to put as much detail as you can in your questions because of that lag. So I don't want to make it difficult for you to get your details back and things like that. So we'll jump right in. So from Florida, Mr. A, tips on swapping out your garbage disposal. So I actually made a video on that just recently. I did that at my mother-in-law's house and decided to go ahead and film at that time. So like 3D Jeff says, kill the power first. And so there's two setups. There's the kind that you plug in, and there's a kind that's directly wired. If it's the kind that's plugged in underneath the sink and you can just unplug it, that's all the power you have to worry about. If it is the kind that's hardwired in, then in that case you want to make sure to flip the circuit breaker that controls that, test it by flipping the switch, and then making sure that you've got the power off completely to that. And then the best thing to do is look at the instructions that come with the new one, and a lot of times that will guide you through, because if you swap brands completely, then that's going to change the way the connector fits at the base of the sink. So you want to be aware of that. And yeah, take a look at that video, and yours is a plug-in. Okay, that makes it a lot easier, and that's exactly the scenario I went through. A lot of them have what's called I think it's called a quick connect adapter that goes on the bottom of the sink, and you can usually get away with leaving the old one in if it looks good and functions well. I'd still recommend getting some plumber's putty and just putting a brand new ring in, that quick connect and the seal, the little flange that goes on the bottom of the sink. That way everything's new and looking good. It takes a while, and it's not the most difficult DIY project, but it's definitely plan on spending a couple of hours at it. So, and if you have any specific questions on that, Mr. A, just let us know, and we'll see if we can answer those for you. But that video hopefully should help guide you through that. I think I just did that maybe 2 months ago, within the last couple of months or so. So yeah, definitely check that out. Let's see, we've got Stephen, and I hope I'm saying this right, Mirambel. What's the best way to attach 1x2 pine to exterior hardy board? I guess it depends on a couple of things. Number one, what are you attaching it for? Because 1x2 pine that's untreated is definitely going to have some issues outside unless it's completely covered up or treated. Hardy board is kind of almost like a concrete type material, so you may need I don't think you'd necessarily need one, but you might be benefited by using a masonry bit to drive that through there. but still, if there's any way you can find out where the studs are behind that, you're going to have basically OSB or plywood behind everything anyway, so there's something to grab onto. So you'll want to make sure to use exterior rated screws, but if you can drive those screws deeper and get them into the actual studs, the actual framing inside the walls of the house, that's ideal. And you can actually, probably the easiest way to do that is find what's on the other side of that, use a stud finder, and locate the studs on the inside wall, and then see if you can use measurements to transfer that to the outside wall. So it kind of depends on what you're using that for. I'm just looking at your looking at the chat here to see if you've got any more details on that. But yeah, just exterior screws, the longer, I'd say the longer the better, as long as you're going into the studs. But if not, then you can just drive them right into that, either the OSB or the plywood that's behind the hardy board. And you should be able to use a regular drill bit or a masonry bit for that. So hopefully that answers the question. Oh, attaching it to put an LED strip above. Huh. So yeah, again, just with the pressure treated part, just make sure you're careful with that. If it's in a covered area, then you're probably fine either way. But if it's not, you want to make sure to use something that's going to stand up to the elements, because pine is soft and untreated. So let's see. Okay, 3D Jeff says he reads all the instructions before he starts. So you win some sort of an award for that, 3D Jeff. That's definitely not common. A lot of us just kind of jump in. Swapping out my Lowe's to a Costco brand. Okay, for the garbage disposal. Yeah, that's going to be, they're all pretty doable. Luckily, the flanges or the sink opening is pretty universal, so I think you'll actually be pretty safe with that. Oh, and Katrina, my wife, put a link to the video there for you, Mr. A, so you can see the video right there. Let's see here. And I'm curious for Stephen, what kind of project are you doing there with the LED strip? Is that something that's going under like in a porch area or something like that? Because there's all kinds of cool stuff out there. Let's see. And again, just in case you didn't hear it before, there is often a little bit of a lag on the chat. So if it doesn't look like I'm responding, sometimes I don't get the chat messages for about 30 or 40 seconds. Mr. A says, I want to insert my TV into the drywall to have a flat, modern look. I do, however, have metal studs. Okay. So there's a guy named, actually I can't remember his first name, but his channel is called DIY Perks. So P-E-R-K-S, DIY Perks. And he did that. He actually created kind of a seamless, flat insert for his TV. So the TV looks like it's like built right into the wall. So there's a couple things that he covers in there. And one of them is ventilation. You want to make sure that the ventilation that you've got for the TV, you've got some way for that air to circulate behind there, because it's electronics, they'll get hot. So you have all those sorts of things to consider. And with the metal studs, you're probably going to need to build out the wall rather than trying to cut into the studs, because as soon as you cut into metal studs, their integrity is completely, I don't know if destroyed is the right word, but yeah, definitely compromised at least. So that's something to take a look at. But you'll probably want to build a false exterior wall on top of the existing wall in order to make that happen. But if you do, I'd love to see it. That'd be super cool. I've thought about doing that myself and just doing like a, have you guys seen the frame TVs that are actually meant to, they look like they display artwork and they're super low profile, a slim bezel, all that kind of stuff. That would be a perfect one to use for that. So let's see. 3D Jeff says, it took me a long time to figure out that the directions, while not always great, help. Yeah, this is generally speaking true. I've worked with a lot of those instructions that are obviously poorly translated from Chinese or some other language, and sometimes they're more trouble than they're worth. But generally speaking, definitely better to have the instructions and know them up front. So let's see. Matt Stringham says, how is the paint holding up on the Honda that we painted white? My daughter just bought a car, but it has a lot of paint fading. I'm debating if I should spray the car myself. So to answer the first part, it's actually holding up like almost perfectly. I haven't seen anything coming off on that. And for those that don't know, my son and I, we did this little project where we have my old car that I gave to him. And so we have my old car that's now the teenager car. And he actually just bought a new one this week. But That car is a Honda Accord, and the paint, it had been in an accident before we bought it, and the paint was all coming off. The clear coat was coming off. It looked really bad. So there was really nowhere but up to go as far as the look of the car. And so we used a unconventional technique. We sprayed, kind of as an experiment, we sprayed Plastidip, if you guys are familiar with that, in cans. And we just used, I think it was somewhere around 23 cans of Plastidip, and painted the whole thing a flat matte white. And it looks so much better. Like, it was actually surprising. And people have all kinds of comments on that, and they don't know if it's like legit or what. And we did not do it the proper way, which is to use the whole kit and get the larger gallons of it and spray it that way. We just kind of did it as an experiment because it cost $174. Is that what it was? Somewhere in that neighborhood. It's really cheap. So it has now been probably around a year, I would guess. And it looks the same as it did the day we did it. It looks great. So he's been through the car wash many times. We usually do the hand car wash, the kind that you kind of do yourself, as opposed to going through the one with all the rollers and the moving parts and stuff like that. There were a few parts that as soon as we peeled it off, it started coming off, it started having a rough edge along the windows, and I talked about that in the video. Those look the same as they did that day, so it's held up really well. The only part that shows signs of wear are the rims, because he's rubbed it against some curbs a couple of times, and we went from a silver or chrome color to black, and you can see through where it's rubbed off. So other than that, it's held up great, and I would recommend it if you want to have just a cheap option. You can buy the kits to do it properly for about, I want to say about $450. So it's definitely more, but it's still really affordable, and it's something that you can do yourself. The Plastidip channel has really excellent instructions on that if you want to give it a try. So definitely fun stuff. And I've actually sprayed or Plastidip the hood, or let's say the grill, and a few other parts on my truck, and it's holding up pretty good. The grill, it takes a lot of abuse, and so that one I'm probably going to redo at some point. But we're over a year into that paint job, and it's looking pretty good still. So nobody notices anything on it unless you go look up real close and you see, oh, there's a little hole right here and a little hole right there. So hopefully that answers your questions. Mr. A saying, yeah, I want it to look like the frame TV. Yeah, that's definitely a pretty cool one. So you'll want to check that out. And again, ventilation would be my first concern on that. So watch that DIY perks video to learn a little bit more. So let's see. Okay, Kevin Cooper, is it within electrical code and safe to leave the capped wires in the ceiling or wall after the removal of a ceiling fan or an outdoor floodlights? So I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, Kevin, are you asking if you can just basically end a wire, snip it, or just have the already ended wire that you've removed something and then just leave it capped and leave it there? My understanding, and this is the thing, I can't answer questions about code for your specific area because, believe it or not, they do change at least somewhat from state to state and even from county to county and town to town. So you can actually go to your city's website and look up the electrical code for your area. But generally speaking, you do have to put a junction box at the end of any open wires. And so that's always the safe way to go. It makes it easier for the next person. And the question that people have with that is, that's kind of ugly, or how do I do that without it looking terrible? And then the answer is the most low profile way, I guess, you can do that is you can just buy a bare faceplate. You can even do a drywall only junction box. So it's a kind that's meant for existing work is what it says, or old work are the terms that they use at the hardware store. And instead of mounting the box to a stud, you can actually just clip it using the little wings. You can clip it to your drywall, and then you put a solid plate on there. And you can paint that plate. You can leave it the same color if it's white already on a white ceiling or something like that, which is pretty common. But that is, I think, the proper way to do it. But again, I would definitely advise you to check the local code and see if they have any restrictions on that. Another good way is you can just call an electrician in your area who already knows the code in your area and ask about that too, just to get the definite answer. So code is tricky. You just always need to check it because it varies from place to place. So hopefully that helped at least to answer your question there. Yeah, and Matt, no problem on the update. We get that question a lot. In fact, I think I'm going to do a follow-up video that says, 1 year in, 2 years in with the Plastidip. The guy who owns Plastidip actually reached out to me and said, you did it wrong. You know, you're not meant to spray paint the whole car. And I was like, I know. And he actually said, come on down to Florida. We'll do a workshop together or something like that. So I think that would be pretty fun to do. So we'll see. Let's see. I'm guessing this is my brother, Cubmaster 1028. Are you ever going to release your rap album, Nilsy Nils Got the Skills? No. If you dig hard enough, you can find some of my I was bored when we were 21 years old rap songs out on the internet. So I'll let you do the digging on that. Maybe you already have the link. I think that's my brother harassing me over there from South Carolina. So yeah. Anyway, 3D Jeff says, the hurrier I go, the behinder I get. Neil D. Bowen. Yeah, I like that. That's something, I don't know about you guys, that's something I've always struggled with, is trying to make sure that there's enough, that I'm slowing down enough to do a good job, as opposed to just trying to get the job done. And I think, according to my mom, I get that from her. Quantity over quality is the struggle to try to get proper quality and stuff. So I'd love to hear about what other projects you guys are working on. It's getting towards the middle of the summer here. Anybody working on any projects that are bigger, smaller? Have you done any cool projects lately? Things that are maybe you didn't plan on doing, or repairs. Seems like we're at that stage in our house where stuff is just now, it's 7 years old, I think, our house. And I think we have a few things that are starting to poop out on us, and just replaced our kitchen faucet the other day. Woke up and there was, you turn the faucet on and it sprays all over the place. And so that's one of those things you have to take care of immediately and kind of have no choice. So yeah, and we made a video of that, so that'll be coming out pretty soon. So yeah, we'll see. Mr. A says, I'm working on the fence today, just taking a break from the Florida heat. Yeah, so Florida's got to be incredibly, we have some friends that just got back from there and we were talking to them last night. Very humid and very, very hot and everything. So yeah, I don't blame you for taking a break from that. So thank you, Marilyn Wong, for your contribution. That's awesome. Congratulations, and I hope you feel better. Let's see. Cubmaster 1028 replaced my shower surround and tub. Changed my brakes today. Wow, that's a lot. So let's see. Yeah, the surround and tub, and if that's you, Grove, my brother's name is Grove. I'm wondering if you did a one-piece on that, or if you did something else. And then, yeah, the brakes are something I still do myself. I've always done them, and I think I may have done those with you at one point, Grove, changing brakes on some of your cars. So probably learned from you. So Kevin, what anchoring methods do you like for the footings of a deck? Good question. So I think I've always thought the best ones are just a full-on concrete footing, where you're digging the hole, pouring the concrete to the recommended level, and then putting your pressure-treated base in there, and then filling it back up, smoothing it out, and all that. Just gives you, I think, what I would assume is probably the most secure. I did see some videos on doing the foam, the expanding foam that goes inside, and from what I saw, and I'm no expert on this, but it was not ideal. It looks too good to be true, and maybe it is from what I saw. But some sort of, yeah, just kind of getting all of your concrete in place and making sure that you've got plenty of it in there, so that thing's not going anywhere. And Kevin, I think you've seen Kevin is one of my neighbors here, and I think you've seen our clubhouse in the backyard, where we've got, that's what we did there. Had the kids help out, got all the footings level and everything like that. And that's we've had way more people in that clubhouse than were ever intended. I think we've had 11 or 12 or 13 adults in there, and that thing was rock solid because of the footings were good, and the bracing that we did on there was good too. So that's what I have most experience with, at least. 3D Jeff's working on 3D printers today. Let's see. FW on the A8 and Y tensioner on the CR10. Oh man. Okay, you got your hands full. So 3D Jeff's in the same boat as me with that. I think I've got, I don't know how many 3D printers right now. I think I've got 13 at home right now, and I just ordered 5 more for a comparison test that I'm doing. So I'll be, it seems like there's constant work to be done on those, and yeah, you've got your hands full, Jeff, I'm sure. Matt Stringham says, big project I want to do next year is to xeriscape my backyard. Yeah, like to get rid of a lot of grass. And I'm in the same boat with you, Matt, because we've got 1/3 of an acre and it's pretty much all grass except for a rock wall and wherever we have concrete. And we live in Utah. The drought is pretty severe right now, and that's been on my mind a lot, is to xeriscape. I've also heard the term local scape, where you use mostly local vegetation, stuff that kind of grows naturally in your area. And I know there's also rebates and stuff to look into with water conservation and that sort of thing. But that's one that we've actually got on our list of looking into for a potential video, because we just need to try to do something maybe a little more responsible than have the entire yard full of grass. So I feel you on that one. Mr. A says, I need to build a cover for my garbage and recycling cans. I have to keep in my patio per HOA. Any videos or tips you can recommend? That's a great one. So you're talking about kind of a container system, or a cover-up essentially, so that you can put them somewhere. It looks nice from the street, but you have easy access to them. I haven't seen videos on those in particular. Haven't done that myself. We have the same kind of setup, except for ours is just on the side of the house. But I've always thought it would be nice to have like a nice little place, a little home for them that's maybe covered, so that in our case, the wind blows the lids open quite a bit. And I know there's a lot of solutions out there for that as well. But yeah, I would imagine you're going to want to use some, I haven't seen anything in particular, but I imagine you're going to want to use some either pressure treated lumber, some cedar or redwood, and you can probably build a pretty simple structure out there using some outdoor rated screws and fasteners and everything, a little roof on there. And I know I've seen people do it out of pallet type stuff, but I think you're just asking for more maintenance when you do that sort of thing. I'm a big fan of Trex, or anything that's either zero or very low maintenance on anything outdoors. So that would definitely be my recommendation. On the Trex thing, if you have Trex at your house somewhere, then you can build something out of Trex. There are a lot of great deals on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace where people got too much Trex, and for a smaller project like that, that might be a perfect way to source some of that. We built our whole deck and some other stuff actually out of Trex that somebody bought and changed their mind on the color and couldn't return it, and they sold it to us for half the price of what was, I think it was less than half of what was at the store. So definitely something to look into. Oh, anchoring the post. Is that Kevin or Mr. A? Oh, okay. That's my wife, Katrina, helping me out. So I'm grateful that she's keeping an eye on things for me. So if drywall, so sorry, not drywall, concrete anchors, there's a couple of options. I think the best one is you can use a masonry bit to drill into the concrete, assuming it's on concrete, I think is what it looks like if it's on your patio. And this also works on pavers if they're big enough, but you want to drill into that, and then they have concrete screws. A lot of times they'll come with a bit, even with the screws at the hardware store, and you can fasten it in that way. You'll probably need to get, depending on what you're using, if you're using 4x4 posts, for example, or even 2x4 posts, you can buy, I cannot remember right now the name of these things, but basically it's the tie down that you can use it to tie down onto another piece of wood or onto concrete. And then there's also a kind that I would highly recommend that's meant for going on concrete, and it lifts it off, so your material isn't actually sitting on the concrete itself. It allows for moisture to go underneath without getting onto the wood. But a lot of times that's meant for when you're pouring or you're doing the form originally. So you want to look for something that's going to help keep it off the concrete, ideally, because otherwise that's just going to be an eventual form of rot if you're working with any sort of lumber on that. So hopefully that helps to answer the question. And the guys at the hardware store will be able to help you with that. I haven't done something specifically like that myself, so I don't have a lot of experience with that. And this is no surprise to anyone here, I think, but I obviously don't have all the answers. But if there's something I can help with even after the fact and go help look it up, I'm happy to do that. There's just a lot of things that I haven't tried myself. So anyway, we have a channel supporter. That's my other brother, York. So got family support coming in. Thanks, York. York, you get priority on questions if you want to ask anything. But my brothers and I are in constant communication. I was telling my friends last night, my brothers are all super handy. It's pretty awesome. So, and Anyway, oh, and there's a donation from my other brother. Wow, this is like, you guys want to call some of our other siblings and get them on? I have 5 siblings, so anyway, thank you guys. That's very kind of you.
Somebody that says that he's doing xeriscape in his backyard. Matt Stringham wants to do a xeriscape in his backyard, get rid of grass.
Yeah, we talked about that one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, and he says, or Mr. A is saying his neighbors did that too, and envy of the neighborhood. I've seen so speaking of brothers, one of our oldest brother lives in LA, and they have, I think that's considered a xeriscaped yard. It's beautiful with the rocks, and they have all the kind of the warm weather plants there, cacti and other trees and things like that are doing well in that sort of environment, and it's awesome. And it's very little maintenance. They use a drip system, and that's pretty much it. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
What would you recommend for a front door entryway, new tile as a first-time DIY? Is it doable or hire a contractor?
Yeah, so tile is a pain in the butt, and again, this is something my brothers have done with me and helped out with, but it's very doable. The first time I did tile, I took on the biggest project I could have. I went to my mother-in-law wanted her whole kitchen, laundry room, hallway, and bath, and dining room. Oh my gosh, it was huge. That she wanted all of that retiled, and it's totally doable. It looks daunting, but I would go for it yourself. So watch some videos on it. I don't have any videos on that myself. I haven't done a lot of tile in this particular house, unfortunately. And the little bit of tile we have that was done after was done by my brother York, who you see there. He did our backsplash. But a few tips on that. Make sure to look for the quick setting mud that goes behind the tiles, and then also check out the look around at tile cutters. You're going to spend a lot of time with a tile cutter of some sort. This is one of those areas where I would recommend going with something, and don't shoot me here, but go with Harbor Freight. You know, buy something that's kind of cheap and will get you through. If you're going to use it for 3 or 4 or 5 projects, it'll work great. If you're trying to use it every single day as a contractor, that's not the route I'd go. But Harbor Freight has some great options for tile cutters. You can buy a manual tile cutter that's non-motorized, or you can buy an electric motor cutter that has a diamond saw blade. And go with the motorized one if you can. It just makes quick work of things, and it actually cuts it rather than just scoring it. And the scoring works, and especially if you're good at it, but it can be frustrating. So keep an eye on that. And I'm curious, just in the comments here, if anybody else has any other tips for. Let's see, who was that? Robert, on the tile, because I'm sure some of you guys in this group have done tile before, and I'd be curious if you have any other tips that I missed there. There's just a lot of options on doing that, which could be just something I would definitely try it, Robert, and let us know how it goes, or if you have any questions. So, oh, Jeff says if you need to make some room for more printers, I could store some for you. Yep. I appreciate the offer. So just FYI, you guys, I actually do sell my printers after a while. I don't have enough room for all the printers that I review and try out, and I usually sell them pretty cheap. So if you are in the market for a printer, I have 1 or 2 right now that are available, and I sell them pretty inexpensively, and they're barely used usually. But yeah, reach out if you're in the market for a printer of some sort. I have my separate channel that a lot of you guys know about called the 3D Printing Zone, and yeah, this one right here. And with that one, I just cover all things 3D printing and try to teach people who are kind of new to it. So let's see.
What's your take on SharkBite products?
Oh, SharkBite. So yeah, SharkBite is very controversial because a lot of people say that real plumbers never use it and to avoid it because it's going to fail at some point and all kinds of things like that. I'm a little more old school in most cases in terms of avoiding SharkBite. So if I have access to something where I can do it without SharkBite, I'll do that. So if I'm doing PEX, for example, I'll use the crimp rings. If I'm doing copper piping or something like that, I'll sweat it and do it traditionally. And that's kind of anytime I have the room or access, I'll just kind of go with the traditional method that's tried and true. SharkBite is excellent for those cases where you just can't reach or things are really confined and it's just a really tricky spot. And also, especially if it's something you can keep an eye on, like if it's in an area that you have access to, and access as far as visual access, you can check on it from time to time. SharkBite will be great. And if something goes wrong, You can shut off your water and replace it. Shark bites, a lot of people maybe aren't aware that they're completely removable. There are shark bite remover tools, and a lot of times they come with the shark bite fitting, or if not, you can buy it separately. But so I think they're great. I try to kind of again reserve it for times when I just can't access it otherwise. So that's kind of my take on that. I'm curious what yours is, if you've had experience with it. I've never had one fail, but I know that they do fail, and so that's why a lot of plumbers don't go down that route. So. Gray matter. Lamar, have you done anything with gray matter? I have a 1963 house drains that constantly clogs. I'm curious, Lamar, where those clog, because it all depends on where they're clogging and kind of what point that's failing at. We've got a video coming up on our pipeline right now. In fact, I've already bought the products and everything on some new types of P-traps that actually are either self-cleaning, which I don't recommend, or kind that's just easy access to clog or unclog your drains really easily. And I'm kind of excited to share that with people because there's some great solutions out there. And I don't know if you're talking about that or something more serious like Roto-Rooter type stuff that's in your 4-inch lines going out the water, the main drains in your house or that sort of thing. So I don't have a lot of experience with that, but let me know, Lamar, in the comments if a little bit more detail about what you're referring to there. And on that note, I just realized we haven't been checking the comments on the site. So let me head over there. Okay, Katrina's taking a look there. All right, so, and again, I'm sure I'm going to butcher this name here. Chandy Swar 12, how to cut small trees in your lawn the easy way. So are you referring to trimming, I'm guessing, how to trim those? Or I don't know if you're talking about maybe removal, but if you're saying cut small trees, I'm guessing you're talking about just trimming them. And this is something I have very little experience with. I grew up around tons of trees and have like no trees now. We live in an area that's very desert, and the tallest trees in our area are actually like I don't know, 10 feet tall maybe. But if it's a smaller tree like you're saying, then those little chainsaw on a pole kind of thing sure makes life easy, I would think. Those you can buy those at Harbor Freight, for example. Again, just a cheap one, or you can get battery-operated ones from other places as well, where there's just a really simple setup to not have to use ladders or anything like that, and just make your way up.
This is York.
Okay, here's so this is a comment a comment that's on the website using that link that's at the bottom of the feed here. A bit of a stretch, but it's a real life problem we have at home. Massive hornet's nests in the backyard. Kids won't go back there. Got any crazy fun or safe ideas on how to remove? Okay, I have one that's
Baseball bat?
crazy and fun and safe, actually. Yeah. So, oh, you know what? This is funny. I'm going to my brother's house next week, so we'll get a chance to do this. I should totally film this. York, I will bring my drone, and we can use the drone to agitate those guys and maybe even see if we can come up with some sort of a little mechanism to be able to cut those out. That way you're sitting safely somewhere far away, even inside is fine. And you can, usually I've seen people do it with blades, but it's got to be something light to have the drone carry it. But anyway, we'll have some fun with that. I haven't dealt with that personally on anything at that scale, but anyway, I wonder if there's people out there who are going to be like, you shouldn't mess with them, that's inhumane and all that stuff, and I don't know. I think if it's to the point where your kids won't go in the backyard, then that's got to be dealt with, and there's probably very humane ways to do that. I'm not aware of an easy, humane way to do that, so we'll have to talk about that. That's a great question. I've just found that the drone version is certainly entertaining, even if it's not the most humane, I guess. So
Lamar says main drain and drains from the kitchen. My wife gets upset.
Okay. No, I didn't. Main drains and drain. There it is. Yeah. Yeah. I don't blame her or you on that. That's really a pain when you have to deal with those drains that are just getting clogged all the time. So there's something called, I will look it up. I can't remember what the name of it is, but basically there's a P-trap that has, there's two main ones that I saw out there, and I'm going to be covering one of them. One of them has a little knob on the outside that you can turn, and it will actually push matter through. So if you've got hair in there or other things like that, it's actually got a little wheel, and it looks almost like a little wind measuring device that it's completely contained and inside. That is not UL listed. That's not something that's approved by code technically, because you're not allowed to have moving parts inside your plumbing. So a lot of people love it, and it's got great reviews, and so that's an option, but it's not something I can recommend as far as code is concerned. And I don't think that's approved anywhere. I think that's kind of universally disapproved. But then the one that I'm going to be reviewing has just a part that's removable, so it has a clear cup at the bottom of the P-trap, which I imagine is going to look disgusting after a little while. I'm actually going to be installing one of them as a pre-trial long before I do the video. I'll probably be doing that this week. But the nice thing is you can see what's in there. When it gets pretty gross, you can wash it out. You can just unthread the cup off the bottom and take it out. If it's on the main drain, that's a whole nother story, and obviously requires a little bit more equipment to access that and to get things cleared out in there, and that's a little bit more of a roto-rooter sort of thing, I would imagine. I'm sure there are DIY ways to do that. I have not had any experience with that myself, so I'm not a lot of help there, unfortunately, but at least on the smaller ones, there's some pretty good solutions out there for taking care of P-traps that are under your sinks throughout the house, so definitely something worth looking into.
Any tips or tricks on getting underneath sidewalks or patios to install PVC to run cabling, like speaker cable, extension cables for temporary Christmas lights?
Good question. So there's a lot of little things, and you may already be familiar with some of these. So underneath sidewalks. Oh, okay, gotcha. So you need to tunnel under concrete, in other words. So with that, there's a couple of options out there. One I've used myself is a hose attachment. So it's actually a PVC. You attach a hose to a PVC pipe, and it's just a funnel. It's just a really high pressure attachment. We use that to run sprinkler lines underneath our sidewalk, and that was only 4 feet probably wide, and it helped a lot. It did not make it a piece of cake. It depends on your soil, right? Where we live, there's a lot of rocks, but that thing was definitely a lot easier than trying to dig everything out by hand. So that's certainly an option. Another solution that I saw just this last week, actually, with April Wilkerson. If any of you guys watch her DIY YouTube channel, she's got some great projects on there. She took a metal pipe and blocked the end of it as best she could. She must have had some sort of a cork or something kind of solid on there. Or you can even put what's called a solid nipple on the end of it that just makes it completely solid. And then pounded the pipe all the way through underneath. If your soil permits that, and again, totally depends on where you live, but if you have soft enough soil or stuff that will budge or move enough, then you can just do that. And then you have a couple of options. One is to just leave the pipe in place if it's galvanized steel, and then you can just take the nipple off and then feed your pipes through, your wires through, or you can pull that out and you've got a hole there, but I think leaving it in place is probably the easiest way to go. So those are a couple of suggestions you might want to look into. There are tools out there, I think, for doing that kind of sideways boring, but I haven't tried any of that sort of thing myself. I've just tried those couple of, or I've tried the one method and seen the other, so definitely something I'd check out.
Eric Harrison, tips on how to fix sheetrock corners that have metal seam covers.
Okay, yeah. So those are a pain. If you guys aren't familiar with that, underneath the corners of your sheetrock and your drywall, you've got either metal or plastic, kind of a vinyl-y plastic edging. Basically, it's all the corners, and whether it's just the edges or a three-way corner like that. And you really have to get, I think at that point you kind of have to get that thing out. So if it's dented or damaged, I would recommend actually just cutting that thing out. If it's metal and you can kind of hammer a few things into place to where the metal is in great shape and looks as it should, even if that means removing a little bit of the drywall by hand, like sanding it down or something like that to get there, that's an option. But a lot of times that stuff gets ruined or crumpled really easily, and it's typically stapled in place. They might use finish nails to put it in place, but oftentimes it's just stapled in. And so pain in the neck as it is, it's probably a good idea to see if you can actually just remove get to the ends of it, because the corners they're only about yay big, maybe 3 inches on all around, and see if you can just pull that thing off, and then you've just got some mudding to do essentially to try to get that smooth again on that corner. And if you're not real comfortable with that, with the mudding part of things, there's I've done a little bit on my channel, but there's some drywall guys out there on YouTube who are excellent. And if you look up, drywall corners and things like that, you'll find all kinds of videos on how to do that and a lot of these guys are, and I'll tell you straight up, they have more experience with that sort of thing than I do, and will be able to kind of walk you through that process pretty well. So that's what I'd try anyway. Let's see. Oh, Grove says, I just had a plumber come and he used shark bites and PEX. Well, there you go. So some of the pros are still using shark bites. I don't know what percentage do. I've literally looked at videos where it has, they either have polls or have gone out and talked to professionals and things like that to say, what do you think of shark bite, yes or no? And the consensus that I've seen, maybe consensus is the wrong word, but the majority, even if not by much, from the pros was that they avoid them. But obviously, that's not everybody. So yeah, they do have their pros, I think, for different times. Oh, and then Mr. A is responding, there are resources that remove the hornets for free. Oh, that's good to know. Okay. Had a massive bee problem in my neighborhood, but I don't have the contact info. And he's in Florida. And yeah, that might be something to check out. So awesome. In York, you put Mrs. A. It's Mr. A. Anyway. Let's see. That's fine, and I appreciate your answer. Yeah, a combo of the HP water and a RAM. Okay, awesome. Okay, is there any other questions on the website or anything? Okay, good. All right.
Grove says to borrow a tile saw from a friend if you can.
Oh, that's a good comment. Yeah, borrow a tile saw from a friend if you can on the tile saw, especially if you're just going to try it once, and then you can always. And that's true. I actually know 2 or 3 people that have tile saws just sitting in their basement somewhere. That's a great point. And I think that goes for tools in general. I'm known as the guy to borrow tools from in our neighborhood, and I advertise it that way. I feel pretty justified in buying whatever tools. I do like power tools. I don't know if that's showing up here, but in buying whatever power tools we want or need, and we're open with that. And we have a great neighborhood, and we lend our tools out all the time to people, and make sure that everyone has access to those. So yeah, ask around and see if you can get one of those borrowed rather than having to buy one. I'm always of the opinion of, and my wife knows this very well, but I'd much rather go buy one just so I can have that anytime. And because of what I do now, especially, we use all of our tools like a ton. So, but yeah, always a good option. Let's see. I think I got everybody. Here's a new one. Any recommendations for storing bikes out of the way in a garage? Yes, I do. There are a lot of options, so I'm wondering if you found a good way. I'm actually going to see if, Katrina, do you mind running and grabbing one for me? There's a box. There's 6 of them in the front corner of the garage with the bike pulleys that I got at Harbor Freight. The left side, yeah, with all the yard work stuff. So Matt, I don't know if you've seen these before, but I found that, again, Harbor Freight to the rescue. They have a really excellent solution, and it's a mixed bag. So there's, I'll tell you about this one and a couple of others that I've looked into. We basically have these pulleys that you can buy, and we got them at the time. They used to do all the coupons and all that kind of stuff. I think we got them for $6 a piece, which is insanely cheap. So it comes with the cables, the pulleys, and the anchors, everything you need to set these up for $6 per bike, basically. You have to use a stud finder on the ceiling to make sure you drive these into a stud, and you put a hook on the front, a hook on the back of the bike, pull on it, and then you can tie that off somewhere, and then you've got your bike up and up on the ceiling, essentially, of your garage out of the way. So if you have space in the garage, ceiling space in particular, then that's a great option. Yeah, this is it right here, the bicycle lift. So here's the bicycle lift, and definitely a pretty cool setup here. So it's got a side, basically an anchor and pulley system on either side. The rope goes off to one side, and you can tie it off. Yeah, really simple. It's a pretty sturdy little kit here, and again, $6. I mean, even if you're paying 10 or 20 bucks for that, still a really good deal in my opinion. We've got 4 kids. We've got probably 8 bikes at our house. And so I haven't installed all those yet, but I've used a homemade version of that before. When I saw those, I was like, add that to our list. We're gonna go do that. So I don't know if anybody else has any other recommendations. I've done, again, like I said, I've done a homemade pulley system before. This is a lot faster and a lot easier and pretty cheap. And then I know a lot of times people will just take hooks. They'll take the yard, they make the circular hooks that are perfect for bike wheels, and you can just put those up on your wall. If you, again, that's if you have wall space. We don't have wall space in our garage, so these ceiling ones are going to be the way to go for us. Let's see. All right, we've got several others here. So, have you ever repaired wood rot in a window with Bondo? I have not. And I've worked with Bondo on different projects and things, actually more with 3D printed type stuff, and a little bit on cars. But yeah, I imagine, I don't know, as far as how that holds up and then sealing it over and that kind of thing. I unfortunately don't have a lot of experience with that one, so not sure how that will go. I don't know if anybody else in the comments here has dealt with that. But yeah, I imagine that's going to be something that will save you a lot of hassle as opposed to replacing the entire sill or the wood frame there. Let's see, I want to swap out my old power tools for all new. How should I get rid of the old ones? I was thinking at the city dump. So Mr. A, on that one, I would recommend using your free classifieds if you have Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or something like that. A lot of times people will collect those old things for parts, essentially, usually for the batteries. They'll take the batteries. But yeah, City Dump will take it. The batteries do need to be handled differently typically, just like with shipping or anything else. Batteries kind of are in their own special lane as far as disposal is concerned. But another option is just to see, especially if they're not all broken and useless, see if somebody will want them for free or for cheap on classifieds, because that's how I buy most of my tools are used, and that's what what I have in my wood shop is all just used tools. So I'd take a look at that. Also, Mr. A, I'm really curious, what brands are you looking to go to? Obviously, that's like picking that's like political or anything else. People have their preferences, but curious if you're going for a certain brand all across the board on that. So let's see. Yeah, Robert, no problem on the tile, and good luck. I hope you do take that on and get some great results with that, because it can be really gratifying to do tile, I think.
Coopers, is any of your favorite innovative tools generally new stuff we may not have heard of yet?
Tools wise, nothing in particular. So for those who, I shouldn't say for those who don't know, because nobody knows this, but we are going to start a separate YouTube channel, because we found that whenever I do woodworking projects like this table that I'm sitting at right now, a lot of times people are overwhelmed by the woodworking projects. The average DIYer isn't going to have a lot of the tools that we have to do that, but those who are interested in woodworking and want to spend a lot of time on it tend to really gravitate towards that stuff. So we're going to start a separate woodworking channel called Learn to DIY Woodworking, and on that, one of the features that we've already decided on, and I've already ordered a couple, are trying out these crazy tools that are just new and unheard of. One I've got an order right now is a tool that this is from AliExpress, which is a Chinese direct from manufacturer type website, and it's an attachment for your drill that supposedly turns your drill into a jigsaw. And there's all the different blades on there, so you can supposedly, with the metal blades, cut through metal piping and things like that. Not the most useful tool, but it was like 24 bucks, I think, for like the nicest version of it. And it's even got some sort of water cooling option on it with that $24 one. So I'm going to try that out, see if that's any good, and just see how that goes, because I haven't seen much out there by way of tools that's new or innovative. One that I did see more recently was speaking of PEX that we were talking about earlier. I want to say it's PEX. I forgot the terminology. It's either PEX A or B or C or 1 or 2 or 3. There's a couple of different ones. There's the type of PEX we all use with the crimp rings and that kind of stuff, but then there's a different version where there's a tool attachment that you get for it's a power tool basically that expands the rings that you use on the PEX, and then you slip it on, and then you've got 3 or 4 seconds to maneuver it, and then it seals itself in place permanently after that. And I've never seen a tool like that. It basically was like a bunch of little fingers. They expand out like this, and then you put the thing in place, and then you're done. So, but not a lot new that I've seen. I like to keep my eye out for that. There's a YouTube channel called Belts and Boxes. Is that what it's called, Katrina? I think. We've been featured on their channel before. Really, really nice people, and they do new tool reviews, like I think weekly, and they're just a great couple of hosts on there doing some really cool stuff. So if you want to look at some new tool news and stuff, I recommend checking out Belts and Boxes. They're pretty fun. So.
Jacob Soha says, looking at finishing my basement, but I've been hesitant because of lumber prices. When do you think they'll be back down at pre-pandemic pricing?
So I kind of keep my finger on the pulse of this one a little bit, just because it obviously affects a lot of what I do as well, Jacob. But the lumber prices are coming down right now, really as much as they have in the last year or two. And what I'm seeing, and you want to do a little research on this yourself to verify, but what I've seen in the last week or so is that prices are getting down to what they think or will be in the next month, kind of their lowest point in since the pandemic essentially, but that they're going to likely go back up at least a little bit after that. So I think they're kind of settling down to their bottom price. And again, I'm no whiz on this. I can't see the future or anything like that. But from what I've been watching and reading, it's actually getting down to the lowest prices, because a lot of people are worried about that right now, just like you are. Everybody is really with lumber. But it's actually, from what I've seen, it's actually going to go about as low as it's going to be. So I think your time to buy is either now or shortly. And that's not to say it couldn't go lower. Who knows? But from what I'm seeing and reading, that's actually the prediction right now, is that it's in the next month or so. Keep an eye on those prices, of course. And the other hard part is there's what's called the futures, and that talk about the lumber prices and the buying prices. That doesn't always translate to your local Home Depot, for example, immediately. They don't lower the prices the second that they get lower prices. That kind of trickles down. So yeah, I'd keep an eye on that. But like I say, from what I understand, that's not going to get a whole lot lower after the next month or so. It might even go up. So let's see. Here's another one. When wanting to remove a kitchen or bathroom or whatever, is it worth it to hire an interior designer to help with the layout? That's a good question. That's from Gavin Messerly. We've never done that. We've never hired anyone, but we've also not. I think if you're talking about redoing it, and let's see, wanting to remove. Yeah, I assume you're talking about redoing a kitchen or bathroom or something like that. I think that all depends on how comfortable you feel with it. A lot of times you'll find pretty much all the inspiration you need online, but if you still feel like you don't have a good fit for your particular layout, or you don't have a good vision of what that's going to look like, that's where an interior designer could be really helpful as far as, and that's, it can almost get architectural depending on how much you're removing and what you're doing. But yeah, if you're talking about mostly a facelift sort of thing, then an interior designer is going to be great. I'd also recommend just asking around. Talk to some of your friends or your family's friends. See if there's someone out there who likes doing that kind of thing and might be willing to help you out for an affordable price. And nothing wrong with going to an interior designer. I just have no idea what they typically charge for a job like that. Let's see.
Derek Dukes, I need to increase the length of our pergola by 1.5 to 2 feet so our spa can fit underneath. Would structural support be weakened if we increase 2 of the horizontal supports by 2 feet?
So the short answer is yes, it would be weakened just because it's got a greater span. The tougher question is, does that matter? Is that enough? And so it kind of depends on how much span you've got there. So if you're adding that 1.5 feet or 2, is that going to be more than it can handle safely? So I would definitely see if you have any option to do some sort of an extended footing on there, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with doing whether it's a concrete footing or something similar. Maybe see what's out there as far as options, because anytime you put more load on there over a longer span, then it's going to reduce the strength of the structure. It's just a matter of, does that matter very much? You might even try it and see how it feels and how everything looks, and actually test it out kind of thoroughly as safely as you're able to, and see how that goes. But yeah, that's up to you. But I'd recommend, usually they're only built for to the minimum quality standard essentially. So I would not risk it necessarily, and see if you can put some more footings on there. That reminds me, actually, kind of circling back to the question earlier about the footings. Another thing to consider depending on your structure is you can buy, I really should know the names of these. Oh, I do know, Tuff blocks. I'm looking out the window because I'm looking at them right now. We built a deck and we used what are called Tuff blocks, and it's Tuff block. And they're plastic, they're a hardened plastic material that allows you to put a 4x4 in any direction. It can be 90 degrees or 45 degrees. And it can also sit on top of it or go in either direction like a plus sign. And so they're very versatile blocks that are meant for sitting on top of the ground, usually on pea gravel or something that's been prepped for a foundation. And it's a modern day replacement for the pier block, the concrete pier blocks that are used for footings on things and it's floating. It's not attached into the ground in any way. It's just sitting on there, and the weight is what holds it down. That's what we used on our floating deck, and we've got probably 50 of them out there. And but it's a low, easy to work with surface. That deck has been up for, is it 3 or 4 years now? And it hasn't moved an inch. It looks great. It works great. There's no settling that's taken place. So that's another option to consider, is Tuff blocks for something like that. So I'm not keeping up anymore. What's next?
More just let's see. 3D Jeff, I think, said, have you heard of the Mastering Mayhem channel? They have a great tool community and a great channel.
Cool. No, I haven't heard of that. Mastering Mayhem. Well, I was gonna write that down, but I'm keeping I've got it where the chat gets saved here, so I'll be sure to check that out. Is that the Build Tuff link? Is that the Tuff blocks?
Yeah. Okay,
there you go. So Katrina's put the Tuff blocks link in there.
Robert Navarrete says he's a big Ryobi fan at Home Depot. But
okay.
Likes the DeWalt bits because they hold up longer.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and those are both great ways to go. Ryobi is kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of the king of it's very popular amongst DIYers. I'll say that. A lot of people are very brand. I mean, it's like talking about politics or religion. People have their brands that they're loyal to. Car brands is another one. But I'm a rigid guy myself. Anything that I can buy from Home Depot that's built with a rigid brand has a lifetime warranty on everything, the battery and the tool itself, forever, which I think is just fantastic. It's the only brand that I know of that has that, so I'm kind of partial to them. But DeWalt is great. I have a DeWalt chop saw and several DeWalt tools, and then Ryobi is great too because they're usually the least expensive, and they're not the highest quality, but they're good. And always keep in mind that with the bits, a lot of times I'll use rigid tools, but I'll use a DeWalt or a Makita bit, for example, because those are something you can use with any power tool essentially. So, but yeah, there's no right or wrong really when it comes to that sort of thing. It's just about more about personal preference and what you're comfortable with. I watched a video on this recently, and basically people buy what they tend to buy what they were exposed to by a friend and had the most positive experience with. Not usually based on research or that kind of thing, but it's because you can't really go wrong with any of them. So on that note, there's another channel that we like to watch called Project Farm. A lot of you guys have probably seen some of his videos. He compares power tools head to head as well as other things, but he's kind of focused in on power tools and really puts them one against the other to see which ones actually hold up. He puts them through a whole array of tests. Drop tests and engine tests, motor tests. I mean, all that sort of thing, just to see which ones work best. So it's kind of fun to see. And we are a little miffed at him because we actually started a channel, didn't put even out our first video, but got the website and the whole thing called Buy This, Not That. So we still have it. It's just sitting there empty. But the whole point was to do that sort of thing. And we had a few things on our list to start with, and he released those few videos like as soon as we were thinking of them, basically. So he beat us to the punch on that. So good for him. And he does great. He's got millions of views on every video. So, but a lot of fun to watch that. Let's see. Yeah, Robert Navarrete. Looking forward to the woodworking videos. Thanks, Robert. And I'll let everybody know when that comes out. That's definitely going to be more towards people who want to spend a little money on tools and enjoy woodworking and some of the costs that go with it. It's not for everybody because it's not the most affordable hobby for sure, but it's so much fun. I love it. Let's see. Going through here. Need to increase the length of our, oh yeah, we talked about the pergola one. Yeah, just up to belts and boxes. Awesome. Yeah, okay. Any other questions, or and did I miss anyone? If we missed anything, let me know in the comments here. I'm just scrolling up to see if we got everybody.
3D Jeff asked if we live in Pleasantville, and I said yes. He asked if we have a guest house. I said we have a crappy trailer. So.
Yep. Yeah. If you guys haven't seen the trailer we're working on, that's a fun project. I have no camper trailer experience, but we're renovating our $500 trailer, and it's been pretty fun. I call it my therapy box. I go out there and work on it for a couple of hours, and I always come back feeling happy. So I love working on it. I think we got everybody. Okay, awesome. So I put a perspective time frame of this of 9 to 10 a.m. Before we wrap up, and I'm happy to stay on longer. We don't have anything going on right this second, but before we wrap up, I'd love to hear any feedback you guys have on this sort of format. My goal here is to try to get as many people to reach out and interact with as many people as possible. I'm not nearly as comfortable doing live streams like this as I am being behind a camera where there's no one around and everything is edited afterward, and all the stupid stuff I say I can just cut out and all that sort of thing. But if you guys have any feedback on ways to make this better, I try to put that comment section on our website because we didn't have any other way. Facebook or YouTube is really limiting as far as what you can actually do on this. I can't enable pictures, I can't enable audio or anything like that. So it's a little tricky, but yeah. Okay, so far good positive feedback, which is great. But yeah, any comments or suggestions you guys have on this, on ways we can make this a little more interactive or helpful for you, just let me know. And as much as I'd love to just say like, here's a website where you can submit your questions all the time, I unfortunately don't really have the time to go through everybody's questions all the time. So this I thought was a easier way to do that. So okay. Well, thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. Thanks for the donations. Thanks for subscribing and watching. And also thanks for helping each other out. That's the other thing I wanted from this, is for people to provide some suggestions from their experience, because I'm just one guy. So yeah, I think if that's it from everybody, then we'll go ahead and wrap up. And just thanks for watching. And keep an eye out. We have some new videos coming out starting in August. So, doorbell. And the accompanying dog barking. We took the month of July off to do a lot of researching and try to figure out what would be most helpful to people. And this is one of the results of that, as we realized we need to interact more. But look for some new videos in July. We've actually got our whole schedule for the next like 2 or 3 months worked out, and some really exciting videos that we're doing that I think will help a lot of people. And I like the 3D Jeff says consider guests, different disciplines, woodworking, 3D, etc. We're on the same page, Jeff. What we'd like to do with this, and in fact I've already talked to a couple of people, but we're hoping to have professionals in their trade come on to, experts like you mentioned, come on to this. So I'd like to say, like, on this Saturday we're going to have an electrician to answer all your electrical issues. We have a plumber to go through all of that, and then so on and so forth, and just have all of the different disciplines that we can get in there. The 3D printing I'm probably going to reserve for my 3D printing channel. We'll probably do a live stream there separately, which would be really fun. And then a handyman, someone who professionally goes out and just fixes people's various issues around the house. We're going to have try to see if we can get someone like that on the live stream as well. So I'm excited. We'll see how this all goes. And these are all tentative plans right now. It all depends on who we can find and what's working. But I've enjoyed chatting with you guys here, and so we'll try to keep that up. Let's see. I think that's mostly it. So, okay. Take care, guys. We'll see you online. And as soon as we have another one of these, we're going on vacation for the next couple of Saturdays. But after that, we'll reach out and make sure everybody's aware and invite your friends. This is seriously just our chance to try to answer as many questions as we can and help as much as we can. So, should be a good time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end now. Thanks, guys, for joining, and have a great weekend. We'll see you.